McLaren, well, the dominance continues despite the flexi-wing technical directive. And Max Verstappen, well, he tangles with his old buddy Russell. Penalty, too harsh, too soft. But the important thing is, does this affect his 2025 title defense? With me to discuss all things, as always, Mick, what do you make of it?
Well, first of all, it was a pretty decent race, I have to say. Fair bit going on at the end there after the safety car. Max is lucky to be alive after that restart.
I don't know.
Man, that was hectic. How he managed
Yeah,
to save
man.
that? Oh,
Yeah,
man, that is some
snap,
serious skill.
that was a big snap, eh?
Yeah,
Big snap.
that was wild, man. That was insane. Um, yeah, man, McLaren, that thing's rapid. You know, those TDs clearly have done nothing to affect their pace.
Well, Zach
'Cause,
Brown was right, wasn't he? I mean, he came out and he just said, "Yeah, it's not going to change anything for us." And
yeah,
yeah,
mate,
they looked faster.
oh, they're on another level this
Yeah,
weekend. Super impressive to see. Max, was it, wasn't it? We'll get into that. But is his title defense over? I'll say it quickly, but I think, yeah, when he hasn't got a teammate helping him take points away from the top boys, yeah, he's he's going to be struggling now. It's not impossible because it is Max Verstappen, but it's going to be tough now.
well, let's start off with McLaren because I mean, let's not take anything away from them because there was obviously it was a domination. We know all the talk coming into this coming weekend. Sorry, this coming week is going to be about the penalty. So we'll get into that, of course, with Max Verstappen. Piastri, great weekend for him. Never looked in doubt. Looked like he had the race under control pretty much from the start. I mean, I can't think of any moment during the race where it looked like it was going to fall any other way, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. Oscar, man, just, well, look, he won the race on Saturday, right? Lando again, just that little bit scrappy on that second run, and Oscar was just too good. And then, yeah, basically well, he had a bit of a pretty ordinary FP1, but from FP2, man, as far as weekends go, you probably couldn't have a better one. And then, yeah, got into turn one first and just controlled the race, controlled the pace, was able to manage his tyres in the clean air. When it looked like Lando was coming back, Oscar was able to respond because he'd been sitting out front managing the tyres. We can't really give a definitive answer on the flexi wings. I think we need like 5, 6, maybe even 7 races to really see if it's affected anybody. But, mate, it certainly hasn't affected McLaren one bit.
Yeah, I think obviously most of the non-McLaren fans were hoping that it would sort of close the gaps up a little bit. I mean, to me, it looked like everything was exactly the same, except, I mean, Williams' performance just didn't seem to be there. Obviously, we'll get into that later. But yeah, you're right. I think it will take a few races for us to really definitively know if it has affected teams or not. But I mean, it's pretty ominous at this point. McLaren, they're just head and shoulders above everybody. Oscar Piastri, I mean, that's his 5th win. Like, he's starting to stamp his authority on this championship. I mean, it's still close. So he only holds a 10-point lead over Lando. So Lando's still definitely in it.
I mean, 10 points is nothing. That's manageable from Lando's perspective. But again, it was Saturday that let him down. He just, I don't know, overdriving, just little tiny mistakes. Yeah, 2/10. I think that's the biggest qualifying gap so far this season.
Because, I mean, 2/10 is still, okay, look, it's quite a big margin, I guess you could say, over a lap. But for that to be the biggest for the year is crazy to think because it's been so close. But yeah, Oscar's just getting it done so far. And 5 races, I mean, how many has Lando won now? 2 this year? I mean, I'm definitely betting bigger on Piastri at this stage. But yeah, let's see. Again, still not even halfway through the season.
At the moment, you can't go past Piastri. Norris is definitely not out of it. Saying the same thing. Saturday, when you've got a team with drivers that are that quick and that closely matched, Saturday becomes even more important because, like, look at today's race, right? Oscar out in front. Lando at times was quicker, but you're sitting in the dirty air of a car that's exactly the same as your car. Like, you can't afford to be sitting behind that your teammate, right? And look, Lando, you could probably say lost the race at the start. He had another pretty ordinary start, and then was just stuck behind Max. So that, hurt his tyres in that first stint. But then, you're sitting behind your teammate that's in exactly the same equipment with a 4-second gap. Like, there's not much you're going to be able to do.
Well, let's get on to Red Bull, because obviously this is where everyone's focus is. The penalty, we're going to hear about it over the next week, perhaps even longer. 10-second penalty. First off, I'm just going to ask you the question straight out. Too soft or too harsh?
I've got a couple of different ways of looking at it. I'll start off by saying, if it was deliberate, too soft. If it wasn't deliberate, which is the way I'm leaning, 10 seconds is fine.
It's very hard to go, that was 100% intentional. Because like you pointed out to me earlier, we haven't seen the onboard of Max going into that left-hander with George, right? It's very hard to be definitive to say that was 100%. I'm on the same page as you. If you can conclusively say that was 100% on purpose, Max drove into George, 10 seconds is just like, it's nothing. It realistically should be a DSQ from the race. On the other hand, I'm thinking, like, would he really do something like that on purpose? But then I'm like, we're talking about Max Verstappen, one of the most aggressive racers out there. And like, a lot of the pundits was sort of talking about, we saw last week, brilliance in Imola. Sorry, not last week, but, in Imola, beautiful pass in tight situations. And then you see what we just saw. So if it wasn't on purpose, it was extremely clumsy.
I feel like where Max slowed down to let him pass, yes, George wasn't fully passed, but there wasn't much in it, right? It was only marginal. And as we know, out of these cars, it's fairly hard to see. I do not believe Max deliberately drove into him. From the outside, right, it all looks like, yes, Max deliberately drove into him. But I feel like Max just was waiting for him to make the pass, but just enough where he could get back down the inside of the corner, right? Because if you let him pass altogether, he was never going to get back past.
Yeah.
Right,
So it was an element of desperation based on the circumstances at that point.
He tried to be too clever.
Yeah.
And misjudged it.
Like, I think that's a fair, I think that's fair analysis, because unless we can see the actual telemetry, like the inputs, as well as the onboard, it's just hard to conclusively say he definitely just drove straight to take him out. I guess the cars are so big, so it is hard to see what's going on around you. Like, the drivers are fully, basically wrapped in their cockpits.
And Russell's coming at speed.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, either way, clumsy.
Yeah,
it was
massively clumsy.
Terrible. Yeah,
cost him big time. Cost him.
Exactly. Terrible piece of racecraft.
Yeah, tried to be too pretty, and it didn't.
Yeah,
and it just didn't work.
But I mean, if they can come out with the telemetry and then it sort of shows the other side of things, and that it was done on purpose, then they need to throw the book. I mean, it has to be a DSQ, because you can't sort of justify that. And it's a shame, because it's clearly the blood was boiling, because we saw the contact down the straight. So he obviously got that big oversteer moment. Obviously with the hards, just couldn't get the traction down. Leclerc did the right thing. Look, he saw his opportunity, took it, but it did look like Leclerc probably squeezed him a little bit. Obviously, George took that opportunity to then get down the inside. And we know, and I think Ant Davison did a really good analysis on this, of how George was there, he was all good, but then clearly gets a bit of snap going on. You see him make the correction, and that's when the contact happens with Max. So the next step, obviously, from that is Red Bull saying you've got to give the position back. And in hindsight, what we've heard come out from the stewards, essentially they're on Max's side for that contact with George, the first contact, I should say.
But did Red Bull have Russell's on board at that time to see that Russell had to make a correction?
Well, that's the thing.
Because
Yeah,
you're right. Like Russell had the right to be there,
yeah.
but then
He technically loses control of the car, right?
he wasn't in control,
Yeah.
right? So yes, Red Bull made the mistake
Yeah.
in saying, "Look, you have to give the place back." Is that a bit of a hangover from previous altercations that have happened?
Yeah.
We don't know. And did Red Bull at the time see Russell's on board to see that that he wasn't in control at the time?
Yeah.
So,
And look, it happened pretty quickly. I mean, you go from that point on the track to where the big contact happened. We're talking second, like what? I don't know, just 10, 15 seconds maybe
yeah.
further down. It wasn't far
Two
anyway.
corners later.
So it happened all relatively quickly. So it's easy for us to go, oh, well, Red Bull had the wrong information and, they've told Max this and blah, 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 blah. But regardless of you think it's intentional or it was a clumsy mistake, it was poor racecraft from Max. It's dented his title hopes massively because with that 10-second penalty, only picks up the 1 point. It just means I think Oscar is potentially around, 2 race wins away ahead. So, I mean, with the dominance that McLaren have, you got to start thinking from a Red Bull perspective, this is going to be a real tough gig for Max to claw this back. Because on the other side of the garage, there's a driver that has just not come to terms with that car for, I guess, many reasons. Probably for Tsunoda's sake, it's probably a good thing that Max has done what he's done because obviously there's going to be a lot of focus on the Max penalty and all that. But, mate, we've talked about it, the drums beating, right?
Yeah, look, Yuki from the start of the weekend couldn't get a handle on the car. He came out and said I don't know what it is. I don't know how to fix it because everything I do just isn't working, right? And in terms of Max being in the title hunt, now, with today's performance, he needs someone that's going to help him take points away from McLaren. And it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It feels like this will be, when we look back at the end of the season, this will be the race that probably cost him his title fight. But look, not even halfway through the season, who knows? Oscar and Lando could have 2 DNFs in the next 3 or 4 races, and he's back in the fight, right? So, but we were speaking earlier about penalty points now. Max's
so I think it's just one more penalty point. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure one more penalty point for this coming month. He gets a 1 race ban.
Yep. So we got 2 races coming in the next 30 days.
Yeah, I believe there's 2 more races.
You think about that, right? You can't even go into those race weekends now if you've only got 1 point. I don't feel like Max would really care, to be honest, because I feel like he already, in his mind, he feels like he was never in the hunt anyway for the championship.
Well, yeah, he made a pretty conclusive statement. Obviously, look, he's still hot under the collar. But by the sounds of it, he's kind of checking out a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, when you see the dominance that McLaren have had this weekend, you just be like, mate, unless we can find a miracle cure for our car, they're just not quick enough.
Yeah. I mean, look, Max must be so frustrated. And look, we know all drivers, they get used to winning, of course. They're out there to win. But Max must be super frustrated because he's been sort of banging on about the car for a long time now. But just not having stability in Red Bull like they've had in the previous seasons.
Yeah.
With the upheaval of Newey and a few others and just, we could bang on all about what happened last year. Driver swaps, Liam gets 2 races, bring Yuki in, now Yuki's under pressure. It must be quite a frustrating season.
Yeah, of course. Well, I mean, when you come from the dominance that they had, you're not going to be happy. And the whole driver swap thing, like Max has got to be sitting there going, like, what are we doing here? Like, he's clearly told them what the issues are and what needs to be fixed. Yeah, they're not there this year.
Quick question regarding Yuki Tsunoda. Are they going to make the swap sooner rather than later? Because, I mean, you gave, until after Hungary, I think it was, where you think the swap's going to happen.
Yep.
Do you think after this week's performance, I mean, qualified last, finished P13, but really wasn't in the mix anywhere, do you think it's going to happen sooner?
No, I still think they'll give him till summer break. I think they'll wait. They should wait at least until the summer break.
Yep. All right. Well, we could talk about Red Bull for another hour because there's just so much going on there, but let's move on. Ferrari, good P3 in the end for Charles Leclerc. Hamilton, we thought he looked pretty good in qualifying because he out-qualified Leclerc, didn't he?
Yeah.
So things were looking positive there, but from a race perspective and hearing him talk, post-race interview, yeah, he was not the happy chappy that we've seen just sort of lately. He's sort of a bit down on himself. So where did it sort of go wrong for Lewis?
Look, Lewis just, from the start of the race, like you saw those first couple of laps, man, like he was sliding around everywhere when Charles was closing up in behind him, and he just couldn't extract the most out of the car today. Did a great job yesterday, but suffered majorly today. Look, the rear of the car is still an issue for Ferrari. They've delayed the rear suspension now. There's talks of Canada, maybe Silverstone. We're not too sure, but they need to get a handle on that. Leclerc had a good race because he qualified P7, but he sacrificed going out on a second run in Q3 and saved himself a set of tyres. So he had 2 sets of medium tyres, and the softs that he started on were only like 1 lap old, and an out lap and an in lap. It paid off today for them. But again, Leclerc is just still managing to eke the most out of that car. Look, they're sitting second, I think, in the constructors. It's pretty tight there between them and Mercedes, and even Red Bull. There's not much in it. But yeah, they need to sort the rear of this car out. I think once they do that, then hopefully we can start to see a bit more of a consistent performance from both of them. I mean, look, over the triple header, man, they've been pretty good, really, compared to where they started.
Yeah. That's the thing. There is definitely, it hasn't been too bad. Second podium for Charles Leclerc?
Yeah.
In a row, isn't it? Yeah. He was P3 in Monaco last week.
Yeah. And Lewis, fourth? Was he fourth in Imola? Fifth in Monaco? Sixth today. So who knows? Next week he'll probably be seventh.
All right, on to Mercedes. Now, Russell, P4, did pretty well, all things considering. Antonelli, unfortunately, had a issue with the car and had to retire. And it was good that, in hindsight, because when I saw the yellow flag come up on the timing screen, I saw that Antonelli was parked up. And so obviously I was like, oh, hopefully it's not a driver error, because, he's been a little bit scruffy lately. Ended up being a mechanical problem. So for his own confidence, not so bad, of course. Toto will be pretty disappointed. He wanted double points today, no doubt. But Russell, he's just, I don't know, it doesn't seem like he does much, but he's always there, He's always there to capitalise. So not a bad result for him.
Yeah, look, I mean, the race start probably hurt Russell the most. We know that car seems to struggle in hot conditions, similar to, what Red Bull are experiencing or was experiencing, depending who you talk to. Apparently, they went back to an old spec rear suspension. So in Imola and Monaco, they ran a new spec and realised it wasn't working the way it should. So they scrapped it and went back to an old spec.
That's interesting because Yeah, their performance in Imola and Monaco were obviously the worst of the season. And there were a lot of rumours on social media that, it's more to do with the flexi wing, that they've, made changes based on the flexi wing. But yeah, it's a good point that you mentioned that.
Even Russell said we struggle in hot temperatures. Why? They don't know yet. That's an issue they got to try and work out. What's concerning, I think, even more is that's 3 races in a row now that they've had an engine issue, and one of the cars has had to stop. It's twice for Antonelli in a race, and then Russell in Monaco in qualifying. So
Yeah, and we expect them to be bulletproof, right? They've been super reliable for many years, and then just to have a few in a row doesn't really bode well. Could be just a bit of bad luck, or there's just some basic gremlin there they need to get ahead of. Now, I'm a little bit excited about this next one, Steak.
yeah,
Again, awesome drive from Hulkenberg. Can't discount Bortoletto as well. I mean, I thought Bortoletto probably a little bit unlucky, possible strategy finishing P12, but look, he had a pretty good qualifying performance with 12th on the grid. But look, Hulkenberg from P16 down to P5, they'll be stoked.
well, firstly, the upgrades have worked a treat, right? And we were looking for this weekend to see if that pace was genuine and they managed to close the gap. And well, the proof's in the pudding. Even the start of the race, man, Bortoletto was pretty racy. They've turned a massive corner, and I guess you could say if anyone's probably benefited from the flexi wing thing, you could say maybe, possibly. Fair play to them, man. Like the upgrades they've brought are clearly working.
What about the constructors? I mean, where are they sitting on the constructors now? Have they jumped? I mean, they're in P8. Okay, so the P8, 16 points tied with Aston. Alpine's now at the bottom with 11 points. A little bit of a resurgence there, and if they continue with that, Audi next year, yeah, maybe onto some good things there.
Bit early, but yeah.
It's just I think it's really just my optimism to see
Yeah.
Hulkenberg secure a podium.
Yeah, we just want him on the podium. Then
Script writers get it done, mate. Because it's I think everyone in Formula One, any Formula One fan would love to see it. I don't think there's anyone out there that would
begrudge Hulkenberg a podium.
Man, if you do, then you put you in this insane asylum because there's something not quite right with you.
Yeah.
But okay, on to RBs now. Not a bad weekend again for RB. Obviously, personally, I was a little bit disappointed for Lawson, P11 in the end. Hadjar just solidifying his position of a potential step up into that main seat, potentially at the detriment of his career. Let's not jinx him. Look, he's just been to me, he's a rookie of the season so far. Other rookies have had their moments, of course, but Hadjar just seems to, doesn't matter, week in, week out. He just looks like Q3 material. Just looks like he's just going to keep picking up points. So a P7 for him today. Good qualifying as well. He got it done. It was in Q3, P9. So he'll be pretty happy with that. Good points on the board. Lawson just missing out there. Probably strategy. Well, not necessarily the strategy, but unfortunately he was on quite an old tyre there at the end, on an old soft. After the safety car, he was actually on the oldest tyre out there. And so holding that 10th position was always going to be quite a big effort, and eventually got overtaken by Alonso, which I'm happy about anyway because he picked up some points for the season, which is good. But anything else to add? I think they're travelling pretty well, the RBs.
Hadjar, man, he was quiet. We're just expecting him to do what he does, and we don't pay much attention to it anymore. On the other side, I thought, unlucky Lawson didn't get a point. Like you said, the strategy maybe, but a little bit scrappy in the race. Had coming together with a few different drivers. Good that his elbow's out. Yeah, he's just got to dial it back a little bit. But again, he's a rookie. Look at Max when Max came in, right? Super aggressive, just grabs the bull by the horns and let's go. And he will learn to dial that back. But yeah, it's just at the moment, like, yeah, just for me, it was a little bit scrappy, the race. But overall, I mean, all weekend, man, he was on pace with Hadjar.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like when you look through the practice sessions, and it's just sort of when it comes to qualifying, it just seems probably a little bit in the probably in the Hamilton mold a little bit, just not quite getting Norris mold, just not quite hooking up the qualifying. And Hadjar just seems to be doing that a lot better. Yeah, and you're right. Just a little bit scrappy today. That come together with great battle there with Albon first, his old DTM teammate, and then the coming together with Behrman, bit of a battle with Behrman, and that he did that sloppy move at turn one, just trying to get down the inside, really late, made contact. To be honest, that RB car of the race, because it didn't get a puncture, it didn't break. I don't know what they've built something super strong there, because I mean that thing was a absolute tank. So but I mean I think for Lawson's sake, yeah, you're right. Just needs to pick his moments a little bit better, and but I like where his season's starting to head now. Let's go on to Alpine, because obviously Alpine are another one that's in the spotlight. Briatore never out of the spotlight, of course. Gasly, good qualifying performance, hit the Q3. Colapinto, again, sort of struggling there. A little bit unlucky in qualifying where, I mean, my poor dad didn't really understand what was going on. He's like, that collar, couldn't say the name properly. That collar, and I'm like, Colapinto, yeah. And he's like, yeah, Colapinto. He was just blocking everybody on purpose in the pit lane. I'm like, no. Let's just take a step back. Don't project your anger at Colapinto there. Clearly had an issue with the car. So, he was a little bit muffed about that. But so a little bit of, bit unlucky there for Colapinto. He didn't really get to build on, because he actually put in a pretty decent banker lap and just didn't get the opportunity to build onto that. But, I mean, race. Gasly picked up some points, P8, so good result there. Colapinto, though, 15th. Not much to write home about.
There's not much to say about Colapinto. He's just clearly not getting a handle on the car. Gasly, on the other hand, we thought, if anyone was going to pick up a point, it'd be Gasly. And you could say very similar weekend to Imola. Looked pretty decent in qualifying. Managed to keep it clean on the Sunday, which we said if he could keep it clean, he was definitely in a shot, like with a shot of picking up some points, and he did that. But that car's not where it needs to be. They need to be in the fight with Racing Bulls.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Colapinto. He's 3 races now into his stint of what we all believed was a 5-race stint. Who knows what Briatore's got planned, of course. So a couple of big ones coming up for Colapinto if he wants to hold on to that seat, because we know Briatore will, by the looks of it, he's essentially, that seat is up for the highest bidder. Now, Aston Martin, look, stoked for Fernando. Great last stint there at the end. He was always sort of hanging around that, 11th, 10th position, always looked in for a sniff. Obviously, I was a bit disappointed for Lawson's sake, but very happy that Alonso was able to pick up some points today in a one-man Aston Martin show. No Stroll today, of course. Little uncharacteristic mistake there for Alonso, where he just I don't know what happened there, to be honest.
He just understeered.
Understeered, just went straight on into the gravel, and he was tracking pretty well then. I think he was, around P8 at that point, if I remember correctly. We've talked about some of these little mistakes that it seemed to be creeping in, but good to see him pick up some points either way.
Yeah, I mean, look, if anyone's going to take points away from Lawson, I'm happy it's Alonso.
Yeah.
You never want to see Alonso on a donut. Again, they seem to have made a little step forward. A one-man show. Unlucky for Stroll. So it seems to be a hand injury that he sustained when he had the push bike accident in 2023. So, yeah. And obviously, the way the rules are, you need to have done a lap in practice or
Practice, yeah.
in practice.
But
Um,
who was a reserve driver for this
so,
weekend?
Dragovic was there.
He
So,
was there because I thought he was in prepping for Le Mans.
yes. So, rumor has it. So, their reserve drivers are Dragovic and Van Dorn.
Yes, yeah.
Uh, but both of them are racing at Le Mans. So that clashes with Canada. But apparently, Dragovic is only entered as a guest driver in LMP2.
Okay.
And he's made the decision that if he's required, he will step back from Mons and fill the seat.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
He needs the opportunity because he's a damn good driver.
Well, he's got mega hype on him, right?
Yeah.
So, and even from the drivers on the grid, rate him pretty highly. So,
The interesting thing is, though, when was this problem affecting Lance? Because obviously it's an old injury.
yeah.
You know, if this was affecting him over the course of all of the season, like why now? Why not?
Pull out
Well, I guess
earlier.
you're protecting your seat, of course. Like you don't really want someone else to come in and replace you. So maybe he was just holding on for dear life. You just get over the pain, or maybe he was taking painkillers and injections and whatnot. Maybe just got to that point where it was just too detrimental. But yeah, you got to sort of wonder how long was he actually struggling with this?
Yeah, so they say roughly, I think it was the word on the street was about 6 weeks. He's sort of been struggling as far as in protecting his seat.
Well,
Does he really need to worry about it? Like he pretty much owns that seat, right?
yeah, yeah.
So
I mean, I just think it's a shame that he didn't, pull away earlier, get himself sorted, and then it would have given Dragovic a really good opportunity. But
yeah, I mean, look, who knows? He probably thought he could drive through the pain, and
yeah,
then it might have been he hit a
curb or
curb
yeah, yeah,
or
exactly.
anything, and might have just tweaked it, and that he's like, nah, that's it. So yeah, hopefully Dragovic will be in come Canada, and we'll get to see him because yeah, he's got a lot of raps on him. So,
Yeah,
but yeah, it looks like look, they seem to have made a small step forward.
yeah.
They,
Last few races have been,
yeah,
sort of competitive. Alonso, I mean, he featured in Q3 over the weekend. Maybe they're onto something good, doing like a little bit of a stake, just reeling in a little bit of performance. Not bad. But speaking of bad, again, we were completely wrong with our predictions. We were like, yeah, Williams the dark horse, the double points,
best of the rest.
best of the rest. Absolute shonky weekend for Williams. Just really never looked comfortable throughout the whole weekend.
Yeah,
I mean, from a qualifying perspective, I mean, Sainz was lonely in 18th and Albon could only manage a P11. And then come the race, well, we saw what happened with Albon, getting into a bit of mischief there with Lawson, and then eventually, God, he lost his front wing twice, wasn't it? I think he needed two, yeah. And obviously he came in to retire the car. Then he was told he got hit with a 10-second penalty, needed to take it. So obviously did the 10-second there, one more lap, retired the car. I mean, they basically just flipped the switch. They just had a Mercedes weekend like they had in Monaco. They've just decided to take on that role and have it this weekend in Barcelona.
Carlos was compromised in qualifying by being held up by Colapinto in pit lane, and then he had to do a quicker out lap, and then he was basically just stuck in dirty air, passing cars on his quick lap, so that didn't help him. Yeah, Albon broke his front wing at the start of the race, then again on lap 26. A couple of laps later, had to retire the car. But it seems like the higher deg and the longer sweeping corners of Barcelona sort of just didn't suit their car. And, they struggled. And even Vowles, came out and said we probably picked this as would be one of our worst races of the season. And, well, he wasn't wrong. We were wrong, but he wasn't.
Mate, we're wrong plenty of times.
Yeah, all the time.
P16, P17 at the end of the race. Haas, yeah, pretty disappointing race there. From a qualifying perspective, nothing really in it for him. Ocon started P17, Behrman in 15th. So things were looking pretty ominous there. I can't remember if we predicted this was going to be an absolute crapper of a weekend. I think it was, right?
Yeah,
'Cause
yeah. I
Ocon
think
had
we'll-
it,
yeah.
Okay, so we were right. We were
Yeah.
right here.
We got
the
one
pendulum,
right.
Yeah, the pendulum swung. Mate, I mean, they're pretty predictable old Haas, eh? So,
Yeah.
okay, so heard it here first. Next race, they're going to have a stonker. But yeah, I mean, good little battle there with Behrman and Lawson. That got all a little bit exciting. And also a little bit of the wrath off Max as well as he passed Behrman with the hands out.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that
Got a
was
bang
that was
the-
pretty wild. That.
Yeah, it was good. It was entertaining.
Yeah.
Had me on the edge of the seat. But I mean, yeah, it's pretty hard. Like if you got a couple of guys fighting for that final sort of point position, and then those leaders come through, and yeah, it was a bit wild. But hey, look, that's what we want to see. I'm not complaining.
Yeah. No.
But yeah, Haas, not too much to say. I mean,
Yeah.
a Haas performance.
Typical sort of Haas, very inconsistent. Is it Ao Komatsu, the team principal, basically said, like the medium speed corners is where they seem to struggle a lot, and they just haven't been able to fix it yet. Like they think they get a handle of it on it one weekend, and then the next weekend they don't. So they clearly haven't fixed the issue. Look, Behrman, okay, wasn't great, but he had to burn up basically all his tyres to get into Q2. So he basically couldn't make a run for Q3. Not that I think he would have got there anyway. Ocon, yeah, one weekend good, the other weekend not so good. So yeah, they've still got a fair bit of work to do. And I agree with you. Next week they'll be in the top 10.
Well, next week they won't be. In 2 weeks.
Well,
We've
2
got a little
weeks.
break, don't we?
Yeah.
Cheeky little break there. So we've been a little bit spoilt with having the 3 races in a row. We just expect to race every weekend now. But
Yeah. Won't be long. That'll happen.
won't be long. But I mean, look, we're going to get 2 weeks of absolute wild headlines on social media, all the news outlets. There's going to be plenty of rumours that are going to pop up. Look, we may even get more news regarding Max's penalty. Can this still be upgraded? Or is that like the final with basically what they've come out with? Like, could he get a DSQ?
I think they'll let the 10-second lie. I think they'll just run with that. I don't think... well, look, if he's going to get anything, he might get a reprimand or a fine.
Yeah.
On top of that 10-second penalty. But look, I mean, what did we learn over the 3 races?
Basically, everything's the same. McLaren dominance. Max could still eke out a win every now and then with his brilliance,
Yeah,
although clumsy today, of course.
yeah. Mercedes a bit inconsistent, starting to creep in.
Yeah.
Ferrari made a step forward. Hadjar doing Hadjar things.
Sonoda struggling.
Sonoda struggling. Look, Stake, they've definitely made a step forward.
Yeah.
They're probably the biggest movers out of the whole field, really, over the last 3 races. Yeah, it's time to take a breather and then go again.
We're sort of heading into that part of the season where, we're going to start seeing teams switch focus to 2026. Like you think, I think as well. Possible change at Red Bull, driving. Plenty more to come, and we're not even halfway through.
Yeah, yeah. Well, who was your driver of the day then?
Oh, man, I can't get past, Hulkenberg. I think he just they just got everything right over there at stake for the race. He looked pretty handy in qualifying. Race was excellent. I mean, on the other side of stating the obvious, look, Piastri was flawless again, under a little bit of pressure, but did what he needed to do. But, I'll give it to Hulk just purely because he P5 and a stake, and it's his best result, I think, since around 2019, so over 5 years. So, just get that P3, man.
Come on, man. Come on.
Just get that podium.
Yeah,
Get that
no,
podium.
look, I agree with you 100%. Has to be Hulkenberg. Maybe a lot of people clearly don't think Max did it on purpose because somehow he managed to get driver of the day. But yeah, stating the obvious, look, mate, the showdown, Piastri and Norris, that's what it's going to be for the rest of the season, while I think the rest of the teams try and play catch up. But we look forward to Canada in 2 weeks' time.
Yep.
But in between now and then, we'll have some more content for you guys. Yeah, make sure you like and subscribe. And if you have any questions, make sure you put them in the comments and we'll try and get to them. So until then, we'll catch you in the next one.